Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us. We are here and we want to talk about this past week's message.
Yeah.
Larry Brey, he preached an incredible word, and we never want to let these sermons pass us by. There's so much power when we can come together, discuss it, really unpack it, and figure out just how this practically applies to our everyday life.
Yeah.
Because there's always something that sticks out to everyone. So I loved the message so much. It was called Between Two Extremes.
Yes.
And it was so funny. My mom and I were having a conversation, and she said to me after she saw my massive water bottle that I've been lugging around with me, she said, "Kristin, you're just so extreme." And I was like, "Mom, I can't believe you said that. That's just perfectly aligned with the message." And we wanted to have a little bit of fun, get to know you guys better, for you to get to know us a little better, and play a little game.
Yes, so I have some would you rather questions that we're gonna go through.
Okay.
Yeah, they're pretty extreme. Some of them are pretty extreme. So if you're watching this, make sure you comment, let us know what your extreme is, what your answer would be. But the first one is,
Okay, I'm ready.
would you rather only be able to wash your hair twice a year or only be able to check your phone once a day?
For me, it's the washing the hair thing.
Yeah.
I don't think I can even go like more than a day, and I'm like, this just doesn't feel right. The phone thing might be a good thing for me if I only checked it once a day.
I think so too. My only hesitation would be like, what if someone's trying to get a hold of me?
What if it was an emergency?
Yeah.
What if something like popped up and I missed it? I don't know.
Yeah. The second question is, would you rather be 4 years old for your entire life or be 90 years old for your entire life?
What would you say?
I would probably say 4 years old.
I was gonna say 4 years old too.
Yeah.
I look at Grace like just going on her little bee that she rides now, and I'm just like, man, I just want to be you. I just want to scoot around on my little bee all day and just have fun playing. So I would definitely not mind being a 4-year-old.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Lots of energy too, right?
Tons of energy.
Excitement, toys.
Yes.
Yeah.
And childlike faith.
Yes, childlike faith.
The next question is, would you rather have to fight Goliath or fight in a war against the Philistines?
I think Goliath.
I think so too.
Yeah? Why?
Yeah. I would say Goliath just because it seems like more of a one-to-one battle.
That's what I was thinking too. I'm like, I feel like I can conquer like one big thing rather than like all these little things at one time. I don't know.
Yeah. The next question is, would you rather name the animals or build the ark?
Okay, I'm a big animal lover. All you guys who've seen me on some of these segments, I always talk about animals. I'm obsessed. I used to work at the Toronto Zoo, so I love them. So definitely naming animals, that is my thing.
Really? Mm-hmm. I was kind of torn between this one because I was like, I would want to name the animals, but I feel like I wouldn't even know where to start.
I know, it would be hard. I have a hard enough time naming a dog or something, but I feel like it'd be fun.
Yeah, it probably would be. Okay, would you rather be rescued from prison by an angel or see Jesus' empty tomb?
This is really hard. I feel like I'd want to see the tomb.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like really, I don't know, like both of it's really special, but that is just so monumental, and to have been there like when that happened, I think would be pretty miraculous.
Yeah, I think for me, I would rather have been rescued by an angel.
Yeah.
Because then I have like my own personal testimony that I can go around and be like, me and the angel were in the prison, we got out.
Yeah,
so
that's good, that's good.
And then the last question is, would you have rather heard one of Jesus' sermons or seen one of his miracles?
I think it's the miracles for me. I think that would have been pretty, again, pretty spectacular. And then, like you're saying, you kind of have a testimony now where you've seen the miracle happen and you were like right there on the ground floor of it.
Yeah, I totally would have wanted to see one of his miracles because maybe he could have done it for me in that moment. Maybe I needed something or healing or whatever it may be. So I would have said miracles.
I just love this whole picture of what he had, right? The white and the black crayon, and kind of how he said, like, so many times we live between these two extremes. It's either one or the other, but it's thinking about how our life is so dynamic and it's made up with all these different colors and all these different feelings and emotions, and we don't just always land on one or the other. That there's so much in the in-between. But we're gonna check out this sermon clip together, and then we're gonna talk about it. So check this out.
Faith gives you the ability to not let him drive. He is in the car. He is with you. But faith is walking through these extremes of saying, I've got two voices competing for my attention, the spirit and the flesh. Can you recognize the last 10 times that you were listening to Simon? Because the reality is it's happening so insidiously, you're not even aware of it. That voice that's cussing them out in traffic, that's Simon. Now, maybe growth is this. The next 10 times you cuss somebody out in traffic, you become aware of one of them. And then the next 10 times after that, maybe you become aware of 3 of them. Maybe the next 10 times after that, you actually don't do one of them. Growth in Christ is measured with a calendar, not a clock. And some of you are feeling like you forfeited your destiny because you haven't arrived yet. No. There is some process, there's some assembly required to this thing called faith. You don't get rid of Simon, but you don't have to play Simon Says.
Well, I think that was just such a great part of the sermon. Just what he said there at the end, like, you don't have to let Simon drive. Like, you can shush Simon. And I love just this idea, like, how we all have these two extremes of us, right? Yes. There's this Peter side of us, the one that is trying to be Christ-like and really seeking after him. But then we all have this Simon version of us. Yeah. The one that's where our negative thinking comes out. That's where our complaining comes out. That's where our fear comes out. That's where he was saying the road rage comes out in us.
Guilty, definitely guilty.
But it's so important to recognize this and then understand, like, where do you want to be the most? What side do you want to swing on? And I know for me, I am totally guilty of letting Simon drive so many times. And for me, it's in the aspect of worry. And I don't know if any of you can relate to that, but sometimes those worst case scenario thoughts, like, they come at me like a flood. They are the things that are saying to me, like, what you're doing isn't good, or you're not good enough, or something tragic is gonna happen. And I can just let that really hold me back from what I feel like God has called me to do. And what I'm learning is, as soon as those thoughts come at me, as soon as that Simon starts talking in my ear, I have to say, shush, I'm not listening to you right now. And I need to be able to just think back to the times where those worst case scenarios haven't happened and recognize that, like, God is with me, he is gonna help me, and no matter what happens, I can deal with it. Like, I don't have to worry. I can just trust that he is gonna provide for me, and he's really gonna be my helper. And I think when I can focus on that rather than letting Simon drive, that's where I'm living out the person that I'm called to be and that I wanna be.
Yeah, I loved that whole clip that we just played for you all was incredible. But I really, really loved how Pastor LB was just saying that faith doesn't kick Simon out of the car, but it just gives him the ability not to drive. And I know for me, there's been so many times where I felt like I was failing as a believer or as a Christian, because we talk about being saved, the moment that you declare with your mouth that Jesus is your Lord and you accept him into your heart, but we don't always talk about how it's, okay, that moment happened, but then the little by little that Pastor LB was talking about, it's little moments that kind of refine you, that God's molding you into the person that he wants you to be. So just because Simon's still in the car does not mean that you are failing as a believer. It's the little moments, and it's gonna happen. But I think Pastor LB also mentioned how, like, you know, we have this Simon side of us, and when we become a believer, again, we think that, okay, now he's gone. Like, give me a new name. Pastor LB was saying earlier in the sermon, give me a new name, God. Just, I want a new name, I want a new nature. And that's not always the case. Like, we still have to work through those things and grow into the person that God's called us to be.
And there's hills and valleys for this. And then God's grace does cover it all. We're not going to be perfect. It's not going to be very linear. It's going to be up and down, and it's a process and it's a journey. But this is discipleship. This is us, like, getting better in Christ. And I think, like, it's so important to not let that Simon come out, but the way to do that also is, like, by surrounding yourself with people that are going to bring out the good parts of you, who are going to encourage you and say to you, wow, like, people that say to me, like, Kristin, like, you were so confident there, you weren't worried about that, like, you pushed through, you did it, like, look at look at this good thing that's happened. I feel like surrounding yourself with those people make a really big difference, and making sure, like, are you surrounding yourself with people that are bringing out the Simon in you?
Yeah.
Maybe that isn't where you should be, and making sure that you are with those people who are really encouraging that Peter side of you and are able to just build you up more and more.
Yeah, most definitely.
I guess, like, to end this off, my question for you is, like, he says it was made, LB mentioned how it's based on a calendar and on a clock. Like, our faith is a journey, it's a process. Like, what can we do practically every single day to make sure that Simon doesn't drive?
I know for me, the thing that's helped me the most is just starting my day in the Word, and starting my day kind of reflecting on God's grace, especially the grace that God had for Peter. And just knowing that if God's grace was sufficient for Peter, then it's sufficient for me.
Right.
And applying that to my own life, and reminding myself that in those moments where Simon might come up to the front seat of the car, that God's grace is enough, and that I should be more graceful with myself as well. Just acknowledging, you know, it's not in that one moment where I declared that Jesus was my Lord that I was saved, but it's little by little.
Yeah, I think that's so good. For me, it's definitely writing it down. So, like, sitting down, I have a journal and I write down all the times where God has not done my worst case scenario. So I can think about, oh, this is gonna happen, but then I write down, but what actually happened in the reality of it. So, like, for example, oh, I think that I'm gonna be really late, and that's really making me worried. But you know what? I wasn't late that time before. And really focusing on the truth and really using that to fight the extremist thinking, the worrisome thoughts, and just really shift my focus on it. So that is something really practical that's been helping me. And I think prayer is a big thing too. And like having this dialogue with God of, like, you know what, God, like, I can, like, being self-reflective of where you're at and understanding, like, okay, God, I can see my Simon coming out of me right now. Like, help me see your will. Help me have your perspective of what's actually going on right now, and help me live in that. And don't let these sort of darker thoughts or these I don't know, not worries or fears or anything, drive me right now. Like, let me have your perspective, God. Let me be more like you. And I think, again, shifting your focus back on God makes a difference.
Yeah, even just thinking back to what Pastor Stephen said last week about looking at who God is first versus who we are, and tying that into the sermon that Pastor LB preached this week was really helpful, and would be a really helpful step for you to take.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if you have anything, put it in the chat right now. How can we practically shush our Simon and just live out the best versions of ourselves? Put it in. We'd love to know. But I hope that you found this helpful.
Yes.
I know for me, like, talking about it and, like, finding those clips that, like, really resonate with you and, like, watching them over and over again is so helpful. Like, thinking about this, I know this week I'm gonna make sure, like, going on, that I'm putting those worries, like, pushing them down and working them out at the same time, and really just replacing it with so much of God's truth. So I hope you found this helpful, and we hope that you just have a blessed week, and you can just continue to keep this at the top of your mind.
Absolutely.
Have a great week, church.